Hey, everybody. I'm Tami Kiefer. I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
My name is Desiree Grimaldi. Buckle up for the Unguarded Mind, the unfiltered podcast that dives deep into the rough waters of life, all the drama, trauma, and crap that life throws your way. We are your fearless guides through all of it. Today is a little bit different. We don't have an additional guest, but we are going to talk about Tami's published book and her course, Preparing for the Jungle.
Yay.
So you created this course a couple years ago, and it's called Preparing for the Jungle. It is a go at your pace course, and it is to attract people that are having trouble attracting people that are right for them, or even dealing with like how to leave your baggage in the past and move on and find that healthy, lasting love that people really search for. And then last year, you went on to be a published author of a book that kind of continues that journey for people, right?
Yeah, they kind of go together. Even to back it up before I was married for 12 years. We got divorced. We've got two great kids, and I had to figure out what I needed to change. It's so easy to go, oh, well, he did this and he did that, and past relationships, and that person, that person. And I was like, you know what? I'm the common denominator. I'm the one who is the other side of these relationships not working out. I have to figure myself out first. And when I stepped back, I mean, I've been a counselor for 23 years, so I'm constantly like talking to people about their own accountability. And when I went through this, it was like, ooh, ouch. Like I have to also look at me. Like, it's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do. So that's kind of how it started because I just feel like, yes, your past, you've got to unpack your past. You've got to know what you've been through. I try not to dwell too much back there, but if you don't use what you have gone through, how do you know what you need to change? How do you know what you need to do to show up differently so that you can be available for healthy relationships? That's kind of how it all started.
And I love that because I think that is a huge problem. And I think it keeps getting worse, honestly, like people taking accountability in all aspects of their life.
Mhm.
And knowing that, you could only change you. So looking at yourself as the common denominator, like if you're the person who all your relationships sucked, all of them were violent, all of them were, no, it's not your fault, but how did you contribute? How did you match energy with those people? Because you say it all the time, energy matches energy or attracts energy. And what are you putting out there that is
Mhm.
that is making you a magnet for those type of people? And it's men, women, whoever. Um so going into or coming out of a relationship, I guess people are bitter, they're angry. I feel like they go through all the emotions. They're bitter, they're
Yeah.
angry. Some of them end great and people can be very mature about it, but that's typically not the case. So when you end a relationship and you're in those feelings, you tend to just be like, fuck love. Like, I'm done.
Right.
I'm never doing it again.
Ever, ever,
Um,
ever.
I never want to experience this again. And you kind of get into this misery about it. And you could get depressed, you could get anxiety, you could, seclude yourself, all these different things. But how do you identify like the limiting beliefs um, about love that might be holding you back, not wanting you to go out and experience that again? Like, how do you put yourself back out there? And how does the course or book, I guess mainly the course, how does the course help with that?
Well, I think that there's a whole section in there about how fear can hold you back. And if you think about it, fear is, I'm sorry, I'm getting over my cold still. um, Fear drives every negative behavior. No one wants to be hurt. And in order to not be hurt, you have to have your defenses up. You've got to have your guard up. You got to have your claws out. And when you're vulnerable, you are more likely to get hurt. But being vulnerable is a huge aspect. It's crucial to be in a healthy relationship. And so I think that those limiting beliefs, if you think about it, like, fuck love. I'm never doing this again. I'm never getting married. I don't trust anybody. There's no good people out there. Those
We're
are
all
all
the same.
they're all the same. Yeah. They're all the same. They're all the same, right? Out of all of the billions and gazillions of people where everyone's the same. Those are all just defensive behaviors. Those are all defensive comments. Those are all just things that's like, okay, if I don't get out there, I'm not going to get hurt. And I think that that's where people can get stuck, because at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of really lonely people. I think there's lonely people in relationships, and I think there's lonely people outside of relationships who want relationships. And those limiting belief systems can, your perception is your reality. So when you believe that way, that's how you're going to live your life. And then who do you think you're going to attract? Probably either nobody or someone who's really unavailable emotionally.
And I'm going to pre-frame my statement because I think it's super important. When I say hurt, I'm not talking about abuse. But you're going to get hurt. You're going to be hurt. Your feelings are going to be hurt. You're going to get heartbroken. It's not going to kill you. It's okay. And I just don't believe it's something that you should be so afraid of that you just bury yourself in depression and in your bed. It's part of life. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, nobody out there cares about your feelings. You better get yourself in check because that world is not kind. And so it doesn't even have to be in relationship. It could be your relationship with your boss. It could be your relationship with your parents, with your kids, with your siblings, with your friends. And I think I love that most about your book is the goal is finding a healthy, lasting love for a significant other, but the tactics and the advice that you give can benefit any type of relationship in your life.
Yeah, because that is the end goal. The end goal is for people who want either their current relationship to be stronger, healthier, or if they're looking for somebody to be in a relationship with, that's the end goal. But I start you from the beginning because I believe the behaviors come from somewhere. We go through life based on learned behaviors. And I think there's a nature nurture quality to things, but yeah, you've got to understand, I start out with first identifying your role in your family that you played growing up. Because you're born into a family or a family dynamic, whatever that looks like. And there's roles that you naturally kind of fall into, whether you're the family hero, whether you're an enabler, whether you're the scapegoat or the lost child or the mascot. You fall into a role. And that's kind of where it starts. And then there's the attachment part, which, we can talk about too. But I start you at the beginning to say, let's go back and evaluate what was your platform where you started.
Yeah, and kind of just work through your shit from there. But so then that would go into the next thing of and I'm a firm believer, you don't know what you like or don't like until you've experienced them. And so understanding your values and needs, because I think it's a lot easier. Your last relationship may have sucked, but you're now 100% capable of going, I don't want that. That is a hard no. That I'm not going to deal with that. So I think that some of the hurt and stuff, as much as it sucks going through it, is totally worth it to get to the end goal of what you do or don't want. And I mean, even thinking back to high school, you knew very early on what you wanted to do. People graduate high school and they're like, I have no idea what I want to do. And they go and they start their basic classes or whatever. And then they their mind on their degree 10 times because they start it, they try it, they don't like it. They realize that's not what I want. And I mean, that's very imperative in a relationship too. You're going to go through ones that you're like, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? And you're going to ignore all the red flags and the gut feelings that are like, don't do that. But again, it builds the trust within yourself too, I would think, of okay, I knew that I shouldn't have entered into that relationship and I disregarded it. So next time that feeling comes up, I'm going to pay attention more. So talk to us about compatibility and values and how to identify your needs in a relationship.
I think that's such a good point. You're right. Like trusting your gut feeling, and you might not know what you want until you know what you don't want. And being able to look at those red flags. If you skim right over those red flags, or you justify it, or you rationalize why someone's behavior doesn't meet your needs, you're just like taking chunks of your confidence out and throwing it on the ground. It's just there's no way faster to diminish your confidence than to compromise yourself. And I think that then you have to ask yourself, why am I doing that? You know, do you think that you need to like fix people? Do you feel like you are nothing without that person? Do you um, is a bad relationship better than no relationship at all? Are you just that craving that attention and that connection with somebody? And maybe that's what it is that's making you compromise yourself. There's all kinds of reasons, but you're right. Like that compatibility part has to start with your own confidence to be able to have healthy boundaries and to be able to say what you want, and healthy communication skills. And yeah, so I mean, it comes down to confidence and
So
trusting yourself.
I think that's interesting. So I learned, luckily, before I met my husband, like what I didn't want. And we had that conversation immediately. Like, these are our non negotiables. This is not what we want. Like, we're now planning for a future. And this is exactly what I want it to look like. We had those conversations early on. But a couple of years ago, in a peer situation, like I knew from the moment I seen this person, I was like, they are not my people. I shouldn't do this. Um, but I also heard, because I was very guarded. My husband would say, you judge too soon. You're judging. So that made me second guess myself a lot, because I was like, I don't want to be that person who's judging. And so I need to take that out of my decision making. And I had a peer relationship with this person, and it ended ugly. But it, like, I beat myself up. I wasn't so mad at the situation or how the relationship ended. I was so mad at myself that I ignored those red flags because I was trying not to
Hmm.
prejudge or do things. So it's not in a relationship situation. There's plenty of those before I met my husband. But more currently, like, as you're growing and maturing and you're trying to identify the things that are wrong with you, sometimes you second guess those protective voices screaming in your head saying,
So
don't do
true. Yeah, it
that.
is. Like, is this my gut feeling? Am I making this up? Am I creating something? Is this true? Like, yeah, that internal trust it's people question it all the time. I questioned it all the time.
Mhm. So that's hard, but I wouldn't take it back. It had
Mhm.
lessons, it had things in it. Um, but it was really hard not to beat myself up for falling for it, kind of thing.
Right.
Um, but I knew my value, and I was able to walk away from that very differently than I would have, like, intimate relationships previous to my husband, knowing I did
Mhm.
everything right and I
Mhm.
was the best. Like, I took the high road, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, but so speaking of, and it all just kind of leads into each other, but like setting those boundaries and having that healthy communication to ensure the two previous.
I know, it's very sequential. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the domino effect, and if you pull out one domino, like if you haven't done the work on yourself, and then you go out there and you're like, I'm online, I'm going to go meet someone, I'm wherever, I'm going to these meetups. If you haven't done the work on yourself, it's almost like you're pulling out that one domino that is crucial in like making things flow, making that healthy process happen. So you're right. I mean, it's so you've got to figure out, why do I communicate like this? Why am I nervous to say what I think? Why do I come across so aggressively? There's always that why, about what can you do to change yourself.
And I think that it's changed so much, and it makes it, I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to date in today's world. Like, I am
Yeah.
not going, like, it I would have such anxiety and panic around a dating app or something like that. I'm used to, like, seeing somebody out somewhere. Like, when we
Old
dated,
fashioned way.
yeah, it was, you met them at school or you met them at work, or you came together through a same friend circle, something like that. So I feel like in the dating world, if you haven't worked on yourself and you're on these, for one, I hate the fact that authenticity is out the window. Like from some of the stories that we have seen, it's like, I like long walks on the beach. Like everybody's putting what they think you want to hear. And I'm like,
Mhm.
just put that you like to just chill and watch Netflix all day Saturday. You don't want to go for a hike. You don't want to go
And
for a
it's
walk on the beach.
okay.
And it's
Right.
okay because you're going to attract somebody that's what they like to do. So you
Mhm.
see all these people like putting things up that they think you want to hear instead of being authentic. So you're just continuing down that road of attracting the same people because you're
Right.
putting out the same fake scenario of who you are that you're going to keep attracting. Or, you have this pre-notion of what your type is. So you keep going for those same people.
Yeah.
Um, that's why I'm obsessed with Love is Blind. It is like my favorite reality show. Um, and seeing their expressions, especially if they're not physically attracted when those doors open, you're like, let me see what his eyes look like. Cause he's like, oh, I should have picked the other one. Um,
I have to watch it. I know I haven't watched that yet.
but they're compatible. Like if they are being honest and authentic,
Uh-huh.
they're pods, they don't see each other, they build this relationship, they fall in love, they
Yeah.
propose all prior to seeing each other based on
Crazy.
family history, what their
Uh-huh.
hobbies are, what their activities are. And they literally throw all their shit out there at once, their financial situation, their credit score, their long-term goals,
Mhm.
their debt. Like they put all this stuff out there. And, you think about it that when that people are on a dating app or even on the dating scene, like they see that person that they're like, oh, that's my type. They
Mm.
look like this, they act like this, they dress like they carry themselves this way, their body language, whatever it is, you have to shift, I think, your attraction from just that physical to actually taking the time to get to know that person. I mean, I could typically tell within the first 10 minutes if I could stand you or not.
I mean, I think that it's even you'd be surprised. It's even faster than that how you can sum somebody up when you're coming from your own authentic place. I think that's so true. And that's interesting. I haven't watched the show. I need to watch the show. You keep telling me to watch the show. But it's interesting, like the people who are more authentic and just saying, here's who I am, you're seeing that their relationship lasts longer or it's just built on honesty from the get-go. I
Yeah.
have my clients a lot of times, whether they're out in the dating world or not, I have my clients come up with their own profile. That's something that I encourage people to do for themselves, just because it's like, write your profile and then go back and evaluate it. Is that honest? Is it true? Why are you saying that you want certain things? Why are you saying that you do certain things? What do you think you're going to attract? But I think it's a really good indicator of their own level of confidence, because when you're writing a profile, you're kind of saying, here's why you should pick me. Here's why I'm a good partner. Here's why I'm a good person. Here's why I'm, whatever. And so I think that it's a good indicator of their confidence even getting out there to begin with.
Mhm. No, I agree. And it doesn't mean that those are the only things you are either. Like if you say like, listen, I'm a corporate businesswoman and I love what I do for work and it is my baby and someday I want to have kids maybe, and on the weekends I like to run around and go to the dog park with my dog, whatever it is. It doesn't mean that that's all you are, but get those major things that you do from day to day out there,
Mhm.
because then you're going to attract somebody who also has a passion for their job and maybe wants
Right.
kids or doesn't. And you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you're closed off and this is just who you are and you're never going to change and you're never going to want to experience anything else. But just, I think looking at it like a day in the life is a
Yeah.
lot better, or a week in the life, a lot
Uh-huh.
better than trying to just put it all together. Like if you go to guys' night every Wednesday and Friday and Sunday and
Put it
hit
out
each
there.
other, like I want to know, because we're not a match.
Right.
We're not going to work. I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong, but it's not for me. and
Yes.
so those are things that, I think are super important.
Mhm. And again, the reflection of you're the one coming up with your profile. So are you looking for that external validation? How's your internal validation? If you don't have a good sense of self, that external comes along, it feels great, but it's going to keep going, and you have to have that internal sense of self.
Oh my gosh, a little bit off subject, but so in the area I live in, there's a Facebook group and it's like the town. So I'm in South Carolina, but it's like Greenville Gals. And I went
I'm
down
gonna
the
love
rabbit
this.
hole of drama. So this one girl posted, and she posted this guy's picture and like list of texts. There was like 6 girls in this group who were dating this guy.
Wow.
They were sharing. I mean, Tammy, the thread was like 365 comments, and they were sharing like, he told me this, and he told me this, and he told me that, and he's bringing all these girls to the same place and the same hot air balloon ride, and like all this
Oh
stuff.
no.
But they all met him on a dating app, and then they went on like they then took it off Facebook. I was super disappointed, but they took it off Facebook, and they had a call, all of them that night, and one of them, I think, messaged him prior and was like, I'm seeing all these girls. And he was like, that's not true. But like they have their receipts.
Wow.
And then they did comment like they were going to set him up or whatever because he was talking to another girl. She hadn't went on a date with him yet. And then, so they were going to set him up. But I was like, and that's just in a small town, and like you're using the same profile picture, you're using the same name, you know we're not a huge I mean, we're pretty big, but we're not a huge area. But I was like,
Right.
I could not imagine. And then they said that he's even like, I guess there's another group, which I'm not a part of because I'm not in the dating world, but there's another group of like the truth about the guy you're dating or something, where everybody goes and airs their dirty laundry of what they've
I think
experienced with certain men. um
Yeah, I think here in Denver, in Colorado, there's one of my clients was telling me it's a Facebook group for Denver, and it's like, are you dating this guy, or do you know this guy, or whatever it is? And it's the same thing. Like they put his picture up there, and I mean, pros and cons, there's like, yeah, if you're out there dating and you're like, oh my God, this guy has taken the same 15 people on a hot air balloon in the last 2 weeks. I mean, you want to know that. But what if they're lying? What if they're like coming up with this guy
Faking
because,
their lives.
oh my God, yeah, a scorned person going, I'm going to trash this guy's life. I mean, going back to your thing about limiting beliefs, I mean, yeah, are they beliefs or are they facts? Like, there's a lot of people who are just like, I don't want to experience any of that. And you don't have to. That's this part where when I mean, it took one of those women to start questioning, to start like, she picked up on a red flag. She picked up on something internally that told her something's off. This isn't making sense to me.
Well,
And
I
then
think
she started digging.
like
Oh,
love bomb, like that was the thing. They were like and you have to take on social, you have to take it with a grain of salt when people are using more psychological terms.
right.
They aren't qualified to diagnose. But
Uh-huh.
those were her words, was like, he love bombed me, and then he ghosted me and would give me like no explanation. We had been dating since Christmas. I spent all this money on him for Christmas. And so I think her intent was coming to the girls group like, what do I do? Where did I go wrong? What did I do? Here's the situation. And then they were all like, is his name
I
this?
know that guy. Can you even imagine? Oh my God.
No,
Yeah.
no, because back in the day, like, I am so thankful because back in the day, like, I was with a guy for quite a few years and he cheated all the time.
Hmm.
But I was a psycho back, like not that caused him to cheat, but if I had found out he cheated like that way and had communications with the people he cheated on me with, I'd probably be in jail. Like
I know, I
because
was
I
gonna
was young
say.
and I was dumb
Mhm.
and you know and so many other things. But I don't know. I feel like people are crazier today, and to like have that kind of energy and that stuff being put out, like somebody could hurt him. Like
Yeah.
across the wrong person. And especially like, I know that they're more like, I don't think it was an anger thing as much as like, we're going to show him, but like, you're
Mhm.
setting him up now. And it's funny when it's funny, but
Mhm.
it could go really wrong.
I mean, think about the woman who spent a ton of money on him. Maybe she's a single mom. Maybe, she introduced him to the kids. I mean, all of a sudden you're getting into some mama bear energy. It's true. It's true. And you're right. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think I'd be curious of the percentage of people who are out there doing that stuff. It can definitely be a limiting belief, but I also believe so much that when you can take things slowly, you get to know people in all kinds of areas. You get to meet their friends, you get to see how they are out in the public, you get to meet their family, you get to evaluate like how are you in conflict? I mean, that's a huge indicator for me when I'm doing couples counseling is like how people handle conflict if they're going to make it or not. And it's just, because you're right, like what you said earlier, conflict is going to happen. It's life. There's conflict that we face every single day. But how you handle conflict and how you manage through that can either make you closer with that person or it's going to pull you apart. Like it's one of two ways. But
Yeah.
you don't know how someone handles conflict until you spend some good quality time with them and you learn about them. It's just so important to take it slowly.
And a second side of that too, like because I'm in a marriage and I'm not out looking for that stuff, like that was shocking to me that that other face group
Yeah.
that other group existed or that this was like things like that were happening. So I also think too, like if you're coming out of a bad relationship, if you're seeking out that like they're all the same, I never want to date again. If you're seeking out all that negativity, you're going to find it.
Yep.
But if you're seeking out that positivity and you're surrounding yourself with people that are in healthy relationships, that are thriving in life with their partner, that you know how to communicate, that's what you're going to see more of. So I think what the energy matches energy, but I also think
Hmm.
like where you're spending your time and putting your attention, and it goes for everything and anything in the world. Whatever you believe and that's what you want to like you want to die on that hill, you'll
Uh-huh.
find supporting evidence for it.
Hmm.
I mean, there's so many opinions. You will always find somebody who agrees with you, negative or positive, and it's really your choice on which path you want to take.
And
Um,
how much time you want to spend on it. I mean, you can even just do a quick Google search on your laptop about something, and all of a sudden you're getting that immediately in your Facebook feed. You're getting that algorithm becomes part of it. So if you're looking up toxic relationships, here's why no relationships work. Here's why everyone's horrible. Here's why you can't trust anybody. And it's like, oh, that's right, that's right, that's right. And this tunnel vision starts to happen.
yeah, so true. So once you hold yourself accountable, you deal with your shit, you understand where it came from, and you truly work on yourself and stop being a victim and stop, you know, crying about it for all intents and purposes. um you go through the course, you learn how to attract the right partner and what kind of energy and confidence you should bring into it. How do you continue to work on it to maintain that lasting love?
So at that point, then you go cast your net. I call it a science experiment because you've got all of this information, you've got all this data, and you're like, okay, here's my hypothesis. I think that first I have to find a subject. And I mean, it's kind of like you want to go practice your skills first. I mean, if you're learning how to downhill ski, you're not going to go on a double diamond right away. You're going to start out on the bunny slope and you're going to practice your skills to see how you do. So it's kind of like dating. And I think a lot of times people have so much anxiety around dating and they just, they're questioning, I haven't been out there, I don't trust myself. I say get out there. It's kind of like, throw the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. And so you find somebody who you think, yeah, I can maybe like have a drink with that person, or I can maybe have dinner, I can maybe have lunch, whatever it is. And And then you learn about them. So you practice, you go out, you cast your net, you practice it. You're watching their behaviors, you're asking them questions, you're seeing if they ask you questions. You're understanding, like at this point, you've already established your non-negotiables, because that's part of the course, is establishing your non-negotiables and why these non-negotiables are important to you and where they even come from. So you've already done all that work. And now you're going out and you're practicing. So when something doesn't hit you right, or you're like, that kind of gave me the gut feeling of like, that was a weird response, you ask, you talk about it, you pull it out there, you encourage a conversation. I mean, I don't know. I think that first date is always like everyone's a little anxious and everyone's kind of like on their best behavior. The second date is a follow-up to, all right, now we know each other, but it's still very new. I think the third interaction is where you can really understand, like, is this someone who I want to spend some more time with?
Mm-hmm. And I think going on a date too, like there's so many cues of who they are, how they treat a server,
Yeah.
how, how kind they are to other people, or just their patience.
Driving. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't recommend driving with anybody on the first date though. Meet them there.
Right. Meet them there. At
But
some point, you're in a car with someone and you can really see like who they are.
But I think too, like, don't be scared. Like when you're practicing, when you're out there practicing, look at it like gambling. Like you're not going to spend money that you're not willing to lose. So
Mm-hmm.
go full out, knowing like, okay, this may be the worst date I've ever been on, but I'm okay with that. Because if it's meant to be, it's going to be. If it's not, then who cares? I got it out and I built that confidence, being able to be like, this is who I am. This is what I expect. This is what I need, and you like it or you don't. And not to be an asshole about it, but like, these are the things that are important to me. And if they're like, you're too needy or you're too demanding or whatever, then it's not going to work, because they're not even open to compromising.
Yeah.
And I mean,
You
compromise
know,
is such a big part of a relationship.
it is huge. It is huge. And of course you're going to compromise. You know, you're two different people from two different upbringings with two different personalities. You're not ever going to change positions, and you might not ever even really meet in the middle, but you've got to give a little bit, because now all of a sudden you're sharing your space with somebody.
Kick
And
your
you know
back.
what? Exactly. I do say, do not have sex with them right away. It's tempting, it's out there, it's like, oh my God, you're so hot, you're whatever, I want to jump in the sack. If you do, you do. But if you do, you have to know that's going to change the relationship right away. Like, you haven't established any kind of foundation yet. And if you automatically have sex, it is one of the most vulnerable things to do with somebody. And I mean, you can go out and like have sex with a bunch of people if you want to, but when you're seeking a person for some type of longevity in your life, if you have sex with them too soon, it changes the dynamic. And like all of a sudden it's like, why didn't he call? Why is he 5 minutes late after he said he was going to be here? Who's he talking to? Da, da, da. All this like internal stuff starts coming out because you had sex too soon. And
That build up,
the
like that,
build up,
yes, that
passion,
connection, those butterflies, because now you've seen the cake, you've tasted the cake, you've ate the cake. There's nothing left. There's no more cake left. Like, yeah, I mean, you lose. That was like, and I remember me and Jesse were talking about this the other day. I was like, do you remember back when we first started dating? Like, one of my biggest things, and it was probably one of my most vulnerable times with him, and it was super early on, but like, I remember getting emotional because every morning he'd wake up, like, we were early on, but not that early, but we'd wake up and it'd be good morning, beautiful, whatever. Like all these sweet things. And I remember one morning I got emotional and he was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I'm just thinking, like, this is going to end at some point. Like, these little things
Mm.
are going to end, just because it's not going to be so new. It's not going to be, that honeymoon phase, if you will. And his response in the moment was, things change. Like, of course, things are going to change. They're not always going to stay this way. And I was like, well, that sucks. But in my brain, that was already my expectation. So I didn't take it so hard. But that man every week, 16 years, 17 years later, still intentionally make sure that he brings some of that. It's not every morning, it's not all the things, but still makes a full intent, because that was such a vulnerable moment, to make sure that he keeps that alive.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so it's like all of that build up, though, when you skip straight to sex,
Yeah.
is gone. There's none of that. And that's the best part of starting out a new relationship, is that beginning, those vulnerable, the butterflies, the excitement, and you rob yourself of it.
Right.
You really do. And then never mind all the other thoughts on both sides. Like, well, does he do this all the time? Does she do this all the time? Is this how they are?
And the trust hasn't been built. So you don't have, it hasn't been destroyed, but it hasn't been built. Like, it's just non-existent yet because it's too soon.
Or
and
you
I
just
think
stuck on what it was like, and you're like, this isn't going to work.
and I'm out of here. Yeah. And I think absolutely. I think that's going back to your very, very first question. Why did I create this course? Is because I know it works. I did the work myself. I went through all of the stages before I even formalized it into a course. And I was in a space where I was probably the most healthiest I've ever been. And that's when I met Jim. And I met him, and I already knew what I wanted. I was already clear. We took time. Obviously, we've taken time, like we're probably the slowest moving relationship in the world. But I think that it's like, 9 years later or whatever, I still get the hi, beautiful, good morning, and just the way he says, like, I love you so much. And he'll preface, I love you so much. And I'm just like so much, it fit. And I met somebody who fit with me, and I never even knew that equation existed, that I had to do the work. I was not out looking. I was in that space of like, forget it. I've got to figure this out. Like, it was devastating getting divorced and having 2 kids. And luckily, my ex and I we get along, we talk, we still do family birthdays with the kids. And thankfully it was a very, I don't know if you say amicable, but it was, we just decided, like, we're not going to get all crazy. We're not going to fight. We're not going to put the kids in the middle. We're not going to do that stuff. And fortunately, he and I both aligned on that, which made things a whole lot easier. But I was just like, I've got 2 boys, I've got to figure myself out. I'm not going to go dating a bunch of people. I'm not going to go introducing them to a bunch of people. I don't want to do that. And so it was after really stepping back and understanding, like, what my part is and what do I really want? I mean, it just for so long, there was so much people pleasing and making everyone happy and just hoping to be accepted and whatever, that I never really sat back and said, what do I want? And I had to do that. And it works. And I just am so passionate about this because it works. And since I've run so many of my clients through the course, and their outcomes are very parallel of,
I know, the reviews are amazing, and they're so heartfelt,
you.
like hearing the transformations that your clients have had that have went through the course. And then also seeing it in the groups and stuff, people talking about how they're growing and realizing things through the course.
And just people who come from horrible relationships and just so much trauma and fear, and for them to have those responses is just, that's why I do what I do.
So your course can be for men, women, divorced, married, single, widow, all the above, and it can be for all relationships, but the end goal is finding your life partner in a healthy situation.
It is. It's for anybody because you're doing the work for you. So you can't go through this without bettering yourself in one way or another. And the end goal, the cherry on the top, is a solid, healthy relationship. Yeah.
Awesome. So preparing for the jungle, unpack the concept of the title with how it represents the journey.
So preparing for the jungle, the second part is avoiding snakes and pitfalls on the path to healthy love. And I feel like out there in the world, especially when you have just come out of a relationship or you're, in whatever tangled mess, kind of a jungle. And there are snakes, there are pitfalls. Sometimes you're the snake, sometimes you're the pitfall. And so when you realize, am I a snake? Am I a pitfall? Like, what am I doing to hold myself back? Or how can I identify the people who are the snakes and the pitfalls? And being able to navigate yourself through this jungle out there. It's unpredictable. There's amazing things out there. There's scary things out there. There's you can have every single emotion when you're trudging through the jungle. And that is the path that you have to take in order to find the healthy love.
That's awesome. I love that. So if people are interested in the course, they can go to healthyhealing.net. They can message you on Facebook. They can follow you on Facebook, grab your book on Amazon. We are going to link all of that below. And hopefully you will choose the path to finding healthy, lasting love and stop sitting there moping. Go out and find the person.
And I walk you through it. I got videos. I've got them accessible while you're going through the course. It's not just one of those, hey, buy this, and then, it goes into the corners of your computer. I want you to work through it, and I will be there to hold you accountable as you work through the process.
You also get put into a community with other people who are working through it. Because again, I think that brings you back to the surrounding yourself with people who are moving in the same direction. So you guys can all support each other
Correct.
and grow together, as opposed to going through all the other Facebook groups that are like, love sucks.
Right. That's how it's unique. Yeah, there's a lot of little unique things that are built into it, and it's all based for your success.
And you have the life experience and the credentials to back it up, which is awesome. You're not one of those coaches who like to coach coaches on how to coach coaches. That wraps us up for this episode. And again, everything will be linked below. Go buy the book, go buy the course, follow Tami on Facebook and all the other social medias, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye, you guys.